time. Mack Rhoades, Baylor Director of Athletics, joins us now on the show. With the story earlier this week, and Mack, thank you for your time, the loose ends that had not been T's that were crossed or I's that were dotted on a Big Ten massive contract. The Big 12 had the extension that Brett Yormark and company pulled off. I just want to add, that was signed, right? That there's no T's and I's that have not been crossed or dotted.
You know, they're still like the Big Ten, still working through some of the long form stuff, but it's extremely close, and we've been tracking really well. I think the communication with the athletic directors, especially the athletic directors, has been really good, and so we're all aware of some of the remaining I's that need to be dotted, T's that need to be crossed, but it is very close, and that's not unusual. Those take a long time to go through. There are outside counsel that are expertise in these areas, and so getting through the MOU piece was done fairly rapidly, but once you get to the long form, there's a lot to that. There is so much detail, and again, just on behalf of Big 12, we're tracking extremely positive.
Mack, can you compare what it was like when you first started working in athletic departments, where you might have 2 games on TV a year that everybody was excited about, and I'm sure it was, hey, we're on TV this week, let's make sure everything is good, to now where you have to be intimately involved and knowledgeable about the specifics of the media deal?
Yeah, no, it's a completely different world, and I go back to my time, at UTEP, when I was the number 2 person in the department, and you had a handful of games on, and we were working with the local affiliates to televise away football games, and even some and some away basketball games, and the debate over whether or not you televise anything at home, because you didn't want that to hurt your gate. You wanted people to buy tickets and be there in person rather than just stay home and watch it on TV. And so there's been such a transformation, in terms of television and intercollegiate athletics, and particularly, again, football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and all of the details behind it, all of the particulars, the access, the starting times, the different windows, all of that. So it really is a lot to digest, and it's obviously a lot to navigate.
Mack, this is this is not a question that you can really answer with facts. It's a bit of a hypothetical, but you guys decided to come to the TV agreement early, and as we know, all the things that have played out these last few months has put you in kind of an unfamiliar but fun place to be, as far as in a position of strength, as opposed to being kind of the hunted constantly. What other factors or what other things came into play you feel like that TV deal helped encourage? And do you feel like, or where do you think the conference would be had you guys not taken that move? Or were there perhaps other moves that you guys made that led you to where you are right now in your mind?
Yeah, quite frankly, I think the first move that really, helped and, provide some momentum, some positivity for the renegotiation, right, going early, I think, was the solidification of the conference and membership. And I think back to when the announcement, Oklahoma and Texas leaving, during the summer, and we were going into a football season, and one of the things that was really prevalent for us was we didn't want an entire football season, to go through an entire football season and everybody's talking about we only have 8 members. and what's the future of the Big 12, and now it's really vulnerable, susceptible. And so, Bob Bowlesby and certainly the conference office and our presidents and all of the athletic directors, did a great job of, adding 4 teams. And so we were able to change that narrative before the college football season even started. So, Craig, I think that was, one component, one piece that was really, really significant. I think the second piece was certainly the hiring of Brett Yormark and his energy and being aggressive and bringing in the right people. And so, for example, bringing in Endeavor as our TV media consultant that had great relationships with both of our TV partners, Fox, ESPN, and so I think the timing of it. I think our willingness to say, hey, we're going to take some risk here. We might sacrifice some monies by not letting this thing trickle out and go to the open market by negotiating a deal right now when we don't have to. But what's most important, and I think certainly money was important, but even more important than that was stability. And I'd love to tell you that, hey, we all forecasted where the economy was headed. Maybe a little bit, but not certainly like it's transpired to be. So, there was probably a little bit of luck, but I think, most of it is we made our own luck. And again, I think, Bob Bowlesby has a part in that. Brett Yormark has a huge part in it in terms of the relationships and hiring Endeavor and having some really, really fundamental, critical conversations with our TV partners and casting a vision for them what we can become. So that's a long answer, but I think all of those things played in.
I remember the day that he was announced. I believe it might have been the same day that we had you on the show, and you didn't know much about it. Now you guys are involved in a lot of the meetings. I think at times even maybe a joined at the hip when it comes to making decisions, along with others, the ADs and presidents and others in the Big 12. What's he like when he is told his idea may not be a good one? Have you seen that happen?
Yeah, I have, and myself, and I'm certainly not the only person, but I've certainly have, I don't know, maybe challenge is too strong of a word, but certainly, I've been direct and candid when I've disagreed, and so have others. And I think one is he allows for that opportunity, and not everybody does that. And then I think maybe he's got a lot of great qualities, but I think one of his best qualities is and I think I've mentioned this before, but he doesn't pretend to know what he doesn't know. He will defer to others when they know more than he does in that space. And then I think finally he's a quick learner, right? And I say that in a really positive way. College athletics is not a space that he'd ever worked in, and there's some nuances to it. There's great differences between professional and intercollegiate, and he's absorbed a lot. He's learned a lot, and so again, I think it goes back to Craig what you said. Our conference, look, you can never be you can never rest. You can never be 100% assured. But our conference is in a much different place, and you even hear the national media talk about it now. That we were once the vulnerable, and right now we're in a pretty good place, and we just need to make sure that we protect that place. We even strengthen it in the future, and I think we're moving in that direction to do so.
There is no question that there have been schools that the Big 12 has at least had some discussion with about the possibility of joining the conference. It just all depends on what story is actually the true details. We've spoken with you about it. What's the difference in talking with somebody, whoever it might be, about, hey, this is who we are, this is why we are a great place to be, and yet not making it sound like you need them, that they are the ones who would win if they joined the Big 12?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think, first and foremost, if we're ever having any of those types of conversations, we're certainly talking about the strengths of the Big 12 and casting vision, where we are today, where we think we're going to be tomorrow. Here's why, all of those things. Never do we speak to, the place that they're in, at the moment. It's all about, Big 12 and where we're headed. And, I think, the conversations, quite frankly, need to be genuine. And, hey, I think, in all of these situations, I would probably, maybe describe, hey, it's a win-win for both. If we're talking and having those types of conversations, hey, it's not just that you need the Big 12. We think the Big 12 could be a really good place for you if it turns out that the place that you're in doesn't work out, and we think we would benefit by you, particular institution, by joining the conference. And so I think that's the way those conversations go, that it's genuine and it's a win-win for both sides.
Mack, part of your job is always to project out what 3 years from now, a couple years from now, you're going to have to be budget-wise and all that. How is there a new layer to that in knowing that you have to push some donations towards NIL and find new money that way, as opposed to it's probably easier to walk in front of somebody and say, this is a building we're going to build, as opposed to this is how much money we need to stay competitive with the people in the conference who are also doing this thing, because that seems a lot more in the abstract.
Yeah, Paul, again, great question. And there's certainly more pieces to the puzzle than there ever have been before when you're trying to navigate, all of this and think about, future and, what do we need for capital? How important is capital, meaning new facilities or renovation of facilities? Just our operating budget, some of the deregulation that's going on, and you think about travel's not getting any less expensive, and particularly now with 4 new members. And then, you talked about the name, image, and likeness space. And so, there's some science to it, but it's probably a little bit more art than science when you think about all of it. And you think about, name, image, and likeness. It is necessary. We have to be in the game. You've heard me talk about that. You've heard me talk about that. We're not trying to match dollar for dollar with some of the other institutions within the state of Texas. I don't know that we can, and that's not a defeatist attitude. That's just who we are as an institution and the number of alums that we have in our donor base, and some of the other things that we have going on. And so how do we be in the game? How do we stay in the game? How much of that, Paul, and this is really the art, how much of it can really truly be new money versus how much of it is money that's redirected from one bucket into, like, for example, the name, image, and likeness bucket. So when we talk about cannibalization, is that 50%? Is it, that we're going to, have to cut into, this total amount of dollars that we need annually for name, image, and likeness? And I think the other piece of it is, how long are we operating in this current environment. Does federal legislation change it? Does the NCAA do something different in the future to help change it? I think we would all agree, if you were talking to everybody, throughout the country, I would guess that 9 out of 10 of us would say this isn't sustainable. So, how long does this, again, current state last? I know right now, that Baylor Athletics, we believe, when we think about, just football, women's basketball, men's basketball, we probably have to have, name, image, and likeness opportunity dollars in the range of $5 million annually. And again, I think that's where we're at for the next 2 years. But what does that look like years 3, 4, 5, 6? Name, image, and likeness is not going away, nor should it. I think the way we do it needs to change holistically, and I do think it will here in a couple of years.
Mack, last question I have, and we appreciate it. Does the NIL and all of that comes with it, and like you said, you're trying to figure out what you need to sustain what, Dave Aranda approached this yesterday during his presser, but does NIL change your expectations of what anything Baylor Athletics should be able to accomplish on a national level?
Yeah, right. I really do appreciate that question. Fair or unfair, right, wrong, or indifferent? No. I just think it can't be an excuse for us. We've got to fight, scratch, claw, overcome, be strategic. Again, we have a budget half the size of some others, and we've held our own, if not more. Name, image, and likeness, right? Again, compared to some other institutions, specifically within the state of Texas, we're at a disadvantage because of our size, etc. But it can't be an excuse. We've got to fight and overcome. And so my expectations are that from an athletic success standpoint, that we not drop. And our coaches, I think, would tell you the same thing. They feel the same way. Now, what I truly and really believe when we talk about dollar for dollar, I don't think we need to be there. There is a value to Baylor that you cannot put a dollar on. Our Christian mission, our values, our culture, the way our coaches run and operate their programs. Again, we're not for everybody, but there is a true value there, and we can never ever lose sight of that. And that's why we're going to be really careful about who comes into our program, who becomes part of our family. But there is a value there that a value there that I think our coaches absolutely believe in.
Thank you, Mack. Appreciate your access as always. Appreciate your time. Have a great holiday weekend.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mack Rhoades, Director of Athletics at Baylor, with us on 365 Sports. And I've